What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode 83 of Armchair Producers. I am one of your hosts, George Terran, alongside the man, the myth, the Star Wars, Mr. Travis Croft. How are you, sir?
I am fine and dandy, thank you. Do not compare you with that shit show of a franchise.
You've got it right behind you. That was my best thing because
I wear a Waffle House.
Is that Waffle House?
Waffle
Okay, I couldn't read it properly.
I did not want to be associated with their more recent work. It's a little bit like Kevin Spacey.
I do actually have a topic for discussion regarding Star Wars, but I figure we can save that because we're on a little bit of a horror-ish kind of vibe at the moment, and Star Wars, unfortunately, will never die. So I'm sure
it's very appropriate. It's kind of a zombie franchise. It's
true.
Always coming back.
It's true, no matter how hard they try and kill it. Now, this episode, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about our next movie in our Chain Movie series, following on from what I thought was the delightful Brothers Bloom. Travis did not enjoy it, but that co-starred Rachel Weisz, who had a small bit part in the 1994 Stephen Norrington directed Death Machine.
I thought I was being funny by picking this one.
Yeah, you didn't know how affecting this movie was going to be.
Know what to expect from this movie, but this is Rachel Weisz's film debut. So
yes, and strangely, she is possibly the best part about it, and that's saying something about Brad.
Really is. It's interesting, isn't it? Like sometimes you go back. I was talking to someone on the weekend about. So I had my bubble buddy come over on the weekend, Susie, host of the Throwback, one of my other shows, and we ended up watching some Unsolved Mysteries while we're eating dinner because why not?
Exactly.
And I mentioned that Matthew McConaughey was in an episode once of Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh shit, was he?
But you know how they used to have reenactments of a crime?
Oh fuck yes!
And Matthew McConaughey was in one of the reenactments of one of the crimes back in the like 80s, early 90s or something. And it's like one of his very, very earliest acting jobs. So sometimes you see someone like that and you go, wow, you didn't see anything in that little performance there that said he was going to be an Academy Award winner one day and one of the biggest movie stars in the world, because it was a really quite an awful segment. His acting was woeful. Sometimes you see stuff like that in their film debut and you go, who knew it? Who thunk it?
Yeah.
But then you see Rachel Weisz in this film, and it is one line, really.
Yep.
But she's magnetic, isn't she?
Yep.
She's a beautiful woman. Not that doesn't denigrate her acting ability, but she is gorgeous. That doesn't hurt. And she has an eyebrow ring, which is interesting. An interesting look for her. But it was 1994. I had an eyebrow ring in 1998, so they were still going around by then.
She was ahead of the times.
So she really had one line. She was so pretty, and she has a magnetic screen presence in this film, which sounds ridiculous when you see she's on screen for probably less than 30 seconds.
Yes.
With one line, yet I'm going to agree with you here and say, even if you didn't know that she was going to be a movie star, I think that little bit was probably a fairly memorable scene in the film.
Yeah.
For some reason, just because she has a presence. And now we do know she's a big movie star. It does certainly. I was thinking to myself, she plays junior executive in this film. I'm like, I hope I pick her when she comes on screen. Like, it was going to be embarrassing.
Yeah.
If we get to talk about the movie and be like, did you see the bit of Rachel Weisz? She was in the background, on the third seat from the left. Like, as soon as you bang, okay, there was no missing her. So it's a long-winded way of agreeing with you that she is absolutely one of the best things in what I think could be one of the worst films I've ever seen.
It is definitely up there for some of the worst movies that we have ever had to watch.
I mean, we watched some Drek.
We have genuinely watched some real horror shit. Disgustingly bad stuff.
I mean, who can forget Jurassic Shark?
Yeah, I kind of think that was better than this.
I think this was better than this. So let's give it the proper dues.
Yeah, let's get into it properly, shall we? Let's get into
Death Machine from 1994, directed by Stephen Norrington, probably we talked a little about him last week. Best known for directing the first Blade film. He also directed the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which was a big movie, horribly unsuccessful, but it was a big cast. It stars, apart from Rachel Weisz, Brad Dourif and Eddie Puget, the highest billed stars, and the
William Hootkins.
Of course.
He's the guy who's been in everything. He was Porkins in Star Wars. He was in Indiana Jones. He was in fucking Batman. He's been in everything. He's that guy who goes, wait a
minute. Aren't you that guy?
Yeah.
So, the plot. Shank Armaments is experimenting with the ultimate fighting machine, which is part human, part machine. So far, the Hardman project has been unreliable and has killed a number of innocent people. The genius behind this project is Jack, Brad Dourif, who lives in the world of models, toys, and magazines. When he is fired by Kale for killing a few corporate officers, he unleashes the ultimate killing machine called the War Beast against Kale and those who would help her.
Yeah. Now, that's actually kind of a succinct way of explaining what the story is. I don't know if the movie does that good a job.
It really doesn't. It's so when this is a funny movie. Like, I think they were trying to be funny a lot of the time. I think there were things in here that were supposed to be jokes, but I was struggling to sort of go, oh, that's not very funny, and it seems out of tone with the rest of the film.
Yeah. It seems like a weird hodgepodge of ideas of, let's take a little bit of RoboCop, let's take a little bit of Terminator, let's take a little bit of this horror, and just chuck it all in a pot and make movie jambalaya. And it's a mess.
It really is. It's all over the shop. I mean, probably the film it most rips from is RoboCop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most obvious. There are definite nods to Terminator. I mean, at one point, one of the characters actually says, "I'll be back."
Yeah.
But then again, it's full of these weird nods. Just listen to these character names. So William Hootkins, who we talked about a moment ago, plays a character called John Carpenter. Geez, I wonder who you're talking about there.
Yep.
We have a Sam Raimi, a Yutani, a Wayland, and a Scott Ridley.
Yep.
So, I mean, and Brad Dourif plays Jack Dante, which I assume is a reference to Joe Dante, the film director who he did Gremlins, didn't he?
Yeah.
So,
he did a whole bunch of things.
So, what? This is like something a first-year student in screenwriting would do. Like, it's like naming
this is a fan movie, a student movie. It's weird, right?
At one point, there was a close-up of a part of a machine that was, I guess, part of the ultimate killing machine weapon, and it had Cameron on it, which I assume was a reference to James Cameron. And I'm all good with my your film references here and there, but this kind of takes it to a new level that I'd never seen before. And I'm like, Yutani, what? So there are some. It's full of references to other stuff, even in the actual character names.
Yeah.
And as you sort of said, we see RoboCop, we see Terminator. What I sort of told somebody, I was describing it to someone today. It's like if you went out and got picked the worst ideas, the worst parts of the best action films of the 80s and 90s, but boiled them down and made them about 20% dumber. You might have something that's approaching Death Machine. So the movie starts with a scene of I guess, what is the, for want of a better term, cyborg version of a killing machine, had malfunctioned, killed a bunch of people at a diner, and is now in an upstairs bathroom punching the wall and malfunctioning. And then your mate William Hootkins comes in and says, he's going to freaking, he's going to collapse, and he just sort of goes nuts and falls over. That's probably about where I finished being able to follow what was going on in the story, because it got chaotic there. It
got chaotic really quickly as well.
And the problem with this is that now I'll give a hand up. The IMDb says there are 3 or 4 different cuts of this film. And
well, the director's final cut is obviously going to be the one that makes it make all the sense.
Well, that really just clarifies which Brad Dourif is really a dream. And here's a radical idea: was the War Beast actually a robot?
Whoa!
Mind blown.
The War Beast was actually the victim all along. Whoa!
It was all a dream or something. Apparently Norrington was never particularly happy with the final result of the film. I am not surprised.
Yeah.
So I can put down to the fact that I saw the 2-hour version, which sounds like it's probably about the longest one out there. And I thought every minute about 2 hours, but
yeah,
because it feels like it's interesting. Sometimes you see a film where it's obviously been troubled. And they've just sort of cobbled together. We've talked about these before, where they've cobbled together footage that they've got to make something resembling a final product which they can sell.
Yeah.
This doesn't quite feel like that. It just feels like it was really badly written or directed, because the story doesn't flow. Things just seem to happen. So after our opening scene with a crazy robot bashing the wall, we move to evil corporation number 174,
which does not believe in good lighting.
No, it doesn't. Though I found the aesthetic interesting.
Yeah,
and probably one of it. That's the good thing I'll say about this. I liked the way it was shot a lot of the time. I liked the sets. I thought they were often interesting. The tight corridors and some of the corporate scenes reminded me a little bit of Brazil.
Yeah.
So that's high praise that is undeserved.
Yeah.
But the corporation, and there are people who are protesting outside, and we meet Ellie Ellie Puget, is that her name?
Yes.
Yeah, Ellie Puget's character, Kale, walking through this huge crowd of protesters into the building. But we don't really understand why they're protesting.
Oh, no, we do, because there's that one that suddenly we little do we know, up until basically the very end, that the context of children is kind of a trigger point for the character of Kale. But we have not been shown anything about children's deaths in the lead up to this. And it's like, wait, what? Huh?
Wait, the protest kind of scenes would have made sense if they were about something that just the fact that this cyborg RoboCop thing had gone out and killed a dozen people at a diner. Maybe the protest should have been about, hey, your company's thing went out and killed people. That would have made sense because we just saw that. Instead,
this was dialer protest.
Yeah, they were talking about something that we didn't see and don't understand really what's going on.
Yeah,
why they're upset and why is she walking through it? She goes to board meetings, and then we just and then she sort of very quickly finds out, actually, I work for an evil corporation.
Yeah,
who'd have thunk it? And then before you know it, she has to go and talk to Brad Dourif. Which is they get the whole, and I'm making it. I am paraphrasing here. There's a lot of screen time that this happens in, and none of it seems to make a whole lot of sense. She has to go down to the engineering department, which involves a lot of people welding, apparently.
Yeah.
To talk to Brad Dourif, who yells at her for being in his room.
Yeah, there's that weird man-child kind of thing going on, and when she's walking through, it's quintessential early 90s. This is a rebel child kind of things. It's spray painted graffiti on his room, and for some reason, even though it spends an exorbitant amount of time slowly moving towards this big door that says "Keep Out Dante" on it, it then just cuts away and then cuts to a close-up of the word Dante, because just in case you didn't see it in the last 37 seconds, it's right there. And then she goes in and she accidentally kicks a box that just so happens to be labeled highly explosive. It's plot device?
And you're right, it's very, very 90s. The film itself is very 90s. Actually, to reference another film, there are jump ahead a little bit, there are, I guess, a third group of people in the plot here. I mean, as things get down as we get down to business, Kale tries to fire Dante, Brad Dourif's character. By the way, I think Brad Dourif's actually pretty good in this.
He's always pretty good.
I mean, I watched, actually, interesting, this is the second Brad Dourif film I've watched this week. On Sunday, for one of my other podcasts, I had to watch The Graveyard Shift.
Oh, I'm glad I chose that not to be the one that we were going to go to.
Thank God, because that is I would say it's a neck and neck between The Graveyard Shift and Death Machine about the worst film I've seen this year. To go back a step, on Saturday night, for the throwback, we watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, a 90-minute film.
Yep.
On Sunday, I watched Graveyard Shift, a 90-minute film. Bill and Ted felt like it was over, like that.
Yep.
For a Graveyard Shift, every couple of minutes I was clicking the button going, how much longer? Oh, there's another half an hour of it. How has that already been 10 minutes?
How is the timer going up? I don't get it.
But Brad Dourif was one of the best things about that film as well.
Yeah.
He was really terrible. He was really good in a really terrible film. I think he was good in this again. His character doesn't make any sense. You kind of wonder if he just ad-libs. But I was going to go again. There is a third force, and we have Brad Dourif's character. We have Kale, played by Ellie Pouget. Mm-hmm. Kale tries to fire him. He fires up the War Beast Death Robot as in revenge. There is a third group of people in this group of protagonists, if we will, who are some sort of terrorist, humanitarian group.
Human eco-terrorists.
Something. But yeah, we sort of meet them early on, planning something, but we're not really privy to what. Yeah. And though they are kind of early 90s dudes, they were kind of like, they kind of wouldn't have looked out of place in Point Break.
Yeah, kind of. Or it's like, I think just because of the random face paint on one of them, what was it? Yutani, I think. It was almost as if it was a weird crossover of Point Break with Waterworld.
With a sprinkle of Mad Max.
Yeah. Witness me!
You know, like they were wearing the cut-off shorts and the vests and the hairstyle and everything was very mid-90s.
Yeah.
And just to go back again, sort of like in Brad Dourif's room, as we sort of, the plot sort of indicated, he lives in a world of, what did it say, action figures and comic books or something. Video games. So, yeah. And killed in a world of models, toys, and magazines.
Yeah.
So he has like He-Man figurines, and he'll play out scenes when he's doing his dastardly thing with his figurines, and you're like, yeah, that was kind of really funny.
I didn't see you play with your dolls again.
it's kind of a thing, a very, very 90s sort of moment there, and I kind of had a nostalgic feeling for that, but that went away pretty quickly. Because stuff just keeps happening. And there isn't any of it.
These human eco-terrorists, I think they kind of lay out, and it's really nice how they do it. It's so fluid. It's so natural. So like, okay, it's almost game time. Let's go over the plan one more time, just for the audience.
Exposition.
And it's literally them basically doing a pseudo high-tech version of breaking into the Nakatomi Plaza and stealing the tech bonds and then setting off a bomb.
I think Yutani looked actually like one of the terrorists from Die Hard. So
yeah, kind of. It was weird. And this is a giant tech company that is creating weapons of mass destruction, monster machines to destroy, and yet these three guys, not disguising their weapons or explosives or anything, they just randomly in one of the scenes just turn up and say like, "Hello."
I don't think anybody works in this building apart from Ellie Pouget, William Hoopkins, and the guy who gets killed.
That's it.
And then, of course, Brad Dourif, who works in the basement. Everybody else seems to have gone home early for the day. So basically, the Brad Dourif's character, Dante, has a big thing that looks like a mobile phone from about 1990. He
Yeah.
has to hold a button on to stop the war beast from killing shit.
Yeah, he very clearly explains to what's his name, to Richard Brake's character Scott Ridley, who's the first one to die from the war beast, that it's a dead man's switch, and if he lets go, the machine goes crazy. Never once does he explain how the dead man switch and not using the dead man switch, the war beast is able to differentiate between him and anyone else.
Yeah, now maybe he was smoking those cigarettes that they had in, or the tag things that they had in Scream.
Yeah, but there's Eco Warriors, the most ridiculous doobies I've ever seen. It's one of them. It's a sequence. I'm sure it must be for comedy, because one guy walks in and he offers one of the guys a pretty standard, but fairly large spliff, and then he returns to the other guy one that literally looks like a carrot, and then he goes to the next guy and then gives it to the other guy, and he's got like a potato with about 6 stuck into it. What?
That's what I mean. Like, the tone of this film is strange.
Yeah.
I mean, I complained last week about the Brothers Bloom having a bit of a funny tone at times, but that was like fucking Citizen Kane compared to this. I mean, is it a horror film? I mean, it's fine for a horror film to be both horrifying, scary, and funny. If you look at something like Scream, or Evil Dead, some of the early Nightmare on Elm Street films. Freddy Krueger has some good lines.
Yeah.
So it can be funny, scary, and horrifying. That's fine. We're happy with that mix. But yeah, this one doesn't anywhere near get it right. Like those films have really the successful version of those films have very firm ideas about when it's being funny, when it's being horrifying, when it's being scary. Cabin in the Woods is another great example where it does all three.
Yes.
And it does it in a really clever way. This one's just in a dumb, stupid way where like the jokes seem to fly in at very odd moments
and not land as well. I don't. Maybe you can explain it to me. Like the character of Sam Raimi, played by John Sharian, he comes in and he's pretty good at being level. That you kind of think, oh, he's gonna be the co-hero to the female Kale hero. There's elements of it trying to emulate Ripley versus the alien from the Alien movies, especially with the way that the war beast looks and that weird rotating wolf doggy head kind of thing. It's a little bit alien-esque.
Yeah.
And he kind of comes in and he's like butch bravado, strong, little bit quippy. So like, yeah, look, blanks in the guns and stuff. And then suddenly, I don't understand why this happens. He has his brain downloaded to a floppy disk, and suddenly he has the inability to talk at a normal speed.
I know, like, hey, clear!
Why does he shout every single line?
Like, if that's what they've programmed their super soldiers to do, there's your problem. Like, oh yeah, the super soldiers over there, we can go kill it. Like, I mean, they're shouting. It was a very. I did notice that as well. I would also like to observe that if you are able to have your brain downloaded onto a floppy disk, what does that say about the capacity of your mind that they can fit it on a fucking floppy disk, right?
Yeah, I know. It's so good. You can barely fit Call of Duty on a 1 terabyte hard drive these days.
Yeah, I mean, if you could put like your Hangman game on a floppy disk back in the day, but that was about it.
That's pushing it.
A couple of megabytes. So yeah, no, I did notice that like he was shouting all the time after that.
Yeah.
So, as you sort of noted, they get their ass kicked by the Wild Beast, the Beast Machine, whatever it's called. And what did you think of the actual machine, the monster? It looked kind of ridiculous, I thought.
It was utterly ridiculous. It had a head, which was essentially just one giant metal jaw that apparently could rotate an eternity around. It never had to rotate back or anything like that. It just kept on turning and spinning. It didn't seem to have much in the way of destructive power when it actually bit something. Because there's a bit where he bit into one guy's shoulder, and you think, this machine has been shown to just charge through walls and climb up all sorts, but it can't just instantly chomp through someone's arm. What? It's got less power than a pit bull? Okay. And you never get a good shot of it either. They play very xenomorph in the original Aliens with it of, we won't show the full thing because the full thing looks ridiculous. We'll have lots of shots of its feet and lots of shots of one or two arms and brief shots of its head.
I was sort of one thing I often say too. I was actually saying in one of my other podcasts about Graveyard Shift, actually, because it also has an equally ridiculous monster in it. And unfortunately, they spend quite a bit of time going, "Here's the fucking monster." And the famous story is always that in Jaws, when Spielberg directed Jaws, they had the mechanical shark and every intention of showing us quite a bit about mechanical shark, but it kept breaking down. Yeah. It didn't work. So because the shark didn't work, Spielberg was forced to show us significantly less of a shark and probably, obviously, just a fin, because that was more achievable than having, because the mechanical shark was busted. In the end, it became much more scary. Yeah. Because the shark, looked ridiculous when we did see it. I mean, even in the 70s, it looked fake. Yeah. But it was more about that classic horror film idea of, it's not what you see, it's what you imagine. It's scary. What you make up in your own head is more terrifying than seeing a
murder in the shower from Psycho.
Exactly. So the classic point was it was a lucky mistake. I mean, who knows what would have happened if they'd had a perfectly functioning mechanical shark? We probably would have had a very different Jaws. Yeah. This is maybe trying for something a little bit different. We know our monster looks ridiculous. Isn't very convincing. So let's just shaky cam it. So you're only ever seeing a bit of it. So, we're sort of maybe going for the same thing. We only see the giant claws coming after Chubby Boy.
But even then, those shots just looked bad. And it looked like weird, sad prototypes of Edward Scissorhands' hands. They kept on kind of going... And it just looked like the way that it was doing it, I kept on getting reminded of the way my cat just kind of goes, and it tries to attack it. It's like, oh,
it's not very precision. It's not very precision, is it? Like, I mean, like, you look at something like the original Terminator, and I mean, a lot of people would criticize Schwarzenegger's acting performance in those. He wasn't much of an actor at that point. He was come a few years out from being a bodybuilder, but it's obviously a wonderful film with an incredibly talented director and a great script. But Schwarzenegger's performance, watch it again, right? His movements in that film are very deliberate. He doesn't generally run places. I mean, obviously, Robert Patrick had a very different performance in T2. But, what was almost terrifying, it comes across like a robot, because a robot's movements, they don't exist, but I would imagine be fairly deliberate, right? Like,
yes, we don't. I mean, they don't exist.
No, except when they listen to this show.
Hello, robot overlords.
I know they're probably very busy with the election right now.
True.
But think of that, like someone whose movements are minimal but deliberate, and you just kind of get that sense that it's not wasting things. It's not spraying and praying. It knows it wants to hurt you. It will hurt you. Yeah. Whereas this thing's, it's not really coming across as a particularly effective death machine.
No, it's really not. And we get a lot of POV shots from the War Beast's point of view, and it seems like we get a throwaway line where apparently it's hunting on the scent of fear and pheromones, but that's not entirely explained. But it looks like it's just working on heat vision, and it is not good quality heat vision, even for, this came out in 1994, so after Predator, and we got good sequences of following someone with heat vision, and that still looked better than this.
I thought the computer graphics were interesting.
It was a choice.
If there was the eco-terrorists have a computer animated section where we talk through their plan to. Was it them or somebody was talking the plan to go through the
it was them.
Theirs and it basically looked like something that had been animated in the same engine that made Wolfenstein 3D. And a lot of, I mean, as you sort of said, there are a number of POV shots from the machine's point of view, chasing people. They, again, look like something out of a video game.
That was what I was just going to say, because so many of the noises and things, it sounds like a coin-op arcade machine. And that kind of makes sense for the man-child that Dante is supposed to be. But at the same time, when you're trying to elicit that level of fear that someone is being chased down a corridor, you don't kind of want the noises from Mario going.
Yeah, I also found it a little bit depressing that you mentioned the first person to get killed by the machine is Richard Brake's Scott Ridley.
Yes. And people will know as Joe Chill from Batman Begins.
Okay, and. Yeah, he basically runs away from the machine. It probably takes him 5 minutes to get him. Like I would expect a robotic death machine to be, snappy. Come on, you should be able to move pretty. It's shown to move pretty quickly, and it's bust through walls. This guy seems to manage to run away from it for quite some time before it catches up with him. So I was like, I would consider that an unsuccessful test of the Warbeast's abilities because. Yeah, I would have reckoned it should have caught him in no time at all. And I don't know what it was trying to do with that. Like, were they trying to get tension going?
Yeah, they didn't succeed in that for sure. Now we've talked a lot about the Warbeast because that's kind of the primary monster. But there is another machine in this movie, and it comes in the second half. And we did tease it. It is Sam Raimi when he has his mind downloaded to the floppy disk, and that is, of course, the part of the Hardman project. Why on earth did they give the Hardman headgear that stupid early 90s moustache kind of little bit that just sat there?
You're going to protect the soul patch, Like,
yeah, it's a
soul patch. You don't watch the soul patch. You can't be like that hurts if someone starts growing it. It's like it's the most painful part. You can't. It's an important part of the armor.
It's just.
Of all the things that are stupid in this movie, you've chosen to concentrate on that one.
Because it's just so right there.
It doesn't look like it leaves the head very much unprotected. The whole gear. So
he's got the
rubber
PVC glasses.
Oh, well, it's going to help in case there's some bright light.
Yeah, and dust. It could possibly help, but I don't think they actually encase the eyes. I think they're just over.
Yeah. He would be susceptible to a dust attack. Only the Warbeast had such a thing.
A very minimal Pokemon would be able to take out Hardman.
It was an interesting choice, but that happens at what, the hour and 20-minute mark, something like that.
Yep.
I mean, you're sort of like, how are they going to stretch this for 40 minutes from here? Of course they do.
Yeah,
but it's not a good 40 minutes. This is one of the longest 2 hours I can recall. Because the finals, get to the end. Unlike the film, they managed to plot. I know people are tense at home, and spoiler alert, in case you were planning on seeing this piece of shit. They get away.
Yeah,
they have to blow up the Warbeast with some random explosive doohickeys that don't look like they do particularly big explosions. So again, I'm going to call that a second failed test on behalf of a Warbeast because I would expect a mechanical Warbeast that's going to be sent to war zones to.
Although, to be fair, it can take a lot of standard rounds being fired at it, and
people banging it on the head with a rifle.
Yeah, those magazines on those machine guns that they had. They went on and on and on and on and on and on. And it's really, this is like a minute of them just holding the trigger down.
They were obviously reloading off screen. They might have cut Didn't see it.
It's just this poor little person on the side just feeding her.
And I mean, even the final, the final scene where they managed to get Brad Dourif eaten by the robot was, I mean, it was predictable, but it wasn't a particularly good end of a film. No. I mean, I was sort of hoping for a bit of payoff, like maybe a la Alan Rickman falling off Nakatomi Plaza or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, we just got a simple, switcheroo of the mobile phone doohickey that stops the machine from eating him, and he swears at her. And what do you make of the? There was a very strange relationship between Kale
the mother-son thing.
But also, at one point he describes her as, "Don't call my girlfriend a liar."
None of that makes sense to me. It was like, okay, he's being a petulant child when we first meet him, and then off camera, apparently he makes the decision that she's his girlfriend, and we don't hear or see any development of that kind of psychosis in him or anything like that, because Brad Dourif just randomly turns up and he'll go away for like 25 minutes and then just kind of walk around a corner and say, like, "Hey, mommy." He's really weird. And his girlfriend, and then it's that mother thing, and then he keeps on talking to her and putting her into this state of complete shock paralysis because he's read her file, where apparently in this corporation they have details like her putting a baby's arm in a blender. Is that what they were actually talking about?
They do have. He did manage to find her porno magazine, so I mean, they obviously hold detailed files on.
Yeah, it was so weird.
And like they have detailed information about the relationship with her parents, and I want to say though, I feel like Ellie Pouget actually does pretty well. Like,
she doesn't come out of this bad. That's for sure.
I was like, I think she had deserved a much better script than this. And despite the fact I'm saying I struggled to understand the relationship between Dante and Kale, and with a girlfriend, mother, son, it was weird. Mm-hmm. But that weirdness could have really been used in the film's favor, right? Like, I feel like Brad Dourif and Ellie Pouget actually had some chemistry there.
And I'd agree with that.
That weird vibe within their relationship could have been used to create a really creepy sort of vibe between the two of them. Like, is this creepy, disgusting guy who's creeping on this high performing woman, and that could have been used to create something very interesting and a real tension in that relationship and a real malevolence between the two of them. But that's beyond what we're dealing with here. But I was a bit surprised to see that she's really done sweet fuck all else other than this.
Yeah, pretty much. And honestly, most of the people involved, I think that Brad Dourif and Richard Brake, who played Scott Ridley, are the two people and Rachel Weisz, they're the people that actually have gone on to be faces you go, "Oh yeah, I know them."
And even Brad Dourif, probably not a household name. I've talked to people about him and gone, "Oh, Brad Dourif's in this," and they'll be like, "Who?" And I'll be like, he played Grimmer Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
he's that guy. So like you can easily pick out a role that he's done that people go, "Oh yeah, I know that." They don't know who he is particularly, but it's.
He did Chucky's voice, didn't he?
Yeah. which it's that. I was kind of I went through everyone who had a picture on the cast list of IMDb on this to try to find some weird, random fucking horror movie to pay you back for this. And it's, I was able to find some really weird shit, but then it was just a dead end. It's like, okay, I led us down a train where there's nothing. I wasn't going to do that. So I did stick with Brad Dourif for our next session.
That is good. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff, and he genuinely does. He's not unknown to do the odd horror film here and there if you want to stick to the horror thing. I feel like we've given this film enough air in the sense that it's
More than enough.
really one of the most god awful things. Like it's half an hour, 40 minutes too long. It's badly written. It's questionably shot for most of it. It's a real strange piece of work, this one.
Yeah. I'm shocked. This has got a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's a cult film. I mean,
maybe.
Things I liked about it, like I said, I kind of like the aesthetic of the building because, like I said, it kind of reminded me of Brazil in this sort of weird corporate sense. I liked Brad Dourif's performance. I like parts of Ellie Puget's performance. I like the kind of bizarre mid-90s aesthetic of some of it. Like, that was kind of nostalgic for me, but that was probably the list. Okay,
so, yeah, someone gave it a 10 out of 10. I'm going to read their review. This is by Gecko14. Cyberpunk plus Brad Dourif equals great result. I really don't know what I was thinking when I picked up this undercover gem from Ye Olde Rental Shop, but I sure as hell don't regret picking it up. Death Machine, even though the name sounds trashy, the movie itself is not. I'm going to stop there because it goes on for a long time.
Wow, it really, really does.
Yeah.
If I had 10 thumbs, I'd put them all up.
Yep. Hey, like what you like, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, like some people like bad film. It's I have my friend Steve. He's probably really enjoy this piece of crap. But I'm, for one, am very glad it's done. Where are we going next?
We are going to the original 1988 cult classic, Child's Play. Because I have never actually watched this.
I've never seen it either.
I've seen the remake where they got Mark Hamill to do the voice of Chucky. And he's pretty good, as he's always good as a psychopathic voice. But the movie overall is not great. However, Child's Play spawned so many sequels, spin-offs, offshoots, all sorts of stuff. It's one of the true titans of retro horror, I think. So I'm curious to go to it and see what's happening. It's
directed by Tom Holland. So
yeah,
it's interesting to see that he's a bit older than he looks, apparently.
Yeah, but it's that's where we're going to be going next week, ladies and gentlemen. There were so many possibilities for me to go with horror and Brad Dourif. I did momentarily think Alien Resurrection, but then I thought better of it. Because going to Alien Resurrection would have taken us to Ron Perlman, which would have got us very easily onto some of the Guillermo del Toro horror stuff, which is cool. But
alas, well, I think you've done well. I'm interested to see a film that, I've never seen before. I know it's like a really popular property, and it's interesting to see. I don't know a lot of the names in this film apart from Brad. So,
Chris Sanderson, man.
Okay.
He was Prince Humperdinck in Princess Bride.
Well, okay, right.
You're such a broken-hearted man.
I like that film, but I mean, who would remember the guy who played Humperdinck? There's a couple other fairly well-known actors in that movie.
That's true.
Andre the Giant.
I do also have a request for the next step going on, and it is following Chris Sarandon to the original Fright Night.
Well, I was just looking at that because that's straight there. I've not ever seen Fright Night either. So I was a sheltered child who wasn't allowed to watch horror films. So that's also directed by Tom Holland as well.
Yeah, there was actually a fairly good remake of Fright Night with David Tennant and what's his face, Anton Yelchin, I believe. That was actually surprisingly good. So if people want to see that's a good option. But I'm curious about the other thing.
Catherine Hicks is the female lead in Child's Play.
Mm-hmm.
She was in Star Trek 4.
There we go.
I don't think that qualifies as a horror film, though, so I don't think we'll be going.
It does, but for different reasons.
I like that film. I think it's okay. I think it's too popular to shit in that film. But anyway, we're not talking about Star Trek. What else you got for us?
Yeah, well, I keeping kind of with the horror theme, I checked out the first couple of episodes of Ratchet on Netflix.
So this is the new series based on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, sort of a backstory
Correct.
of the Academy Award winning performance by, what was her name again? Was it Catherine something?
Ooh, now you got
Anyway,
me.
the role of Nurse Ratchet, Louise Fletcher was the
Yes.
actress who played Nurse Ratchet in that film. Have you seen that film?
Yes. Love it.
It's a classic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How does Ratchet hold up?
Well, it's a Ryan Murphy, Sarah Paulson joint, and they have worked together quite a lot on American Horror Story, and they work very well together. They've got a very specific kind of style of telling their horror anthology series of American Horror Story, which is some of the best and some of the worst horror that you will see on TV. Depends on the season that you're watching. Sarah Paulson is always phenomenal. I love it a bit. And Ryan Murphy has got his own style, and that style of American Horror Story, literally the stylized aesthetic of the show, the pacing of it, it is very, very reminiscent of his work with American Horror Story. I don't know if I would kind of look at it and go, oh yeah, this is a logical prequel, so to speak, of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest's Nurse Ratched character, because it really feels not. This sets her character up as really weird, twisted, and broken in far too early of a time. I don't know if this is going to be a limited series, so they wanted to kind of just get to the point nice and quick, but it's an unusual show that it's not bad, but I feel like they haven't really done anything particularly innovative with the character that Louise portrayed in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
My first reaction is you sent the trailer to me on Facebook a couple of weeks ago and said it looked good. I mean, it does look beautiful. I haven't watched it yet. It looks gorgeous. And Sarah Paulson, love Sarah Paulson. But my first reaction on this is yet another example of how we now live in the post-creative era. Should we create a new show? I mean, American Horror Story, I'm not a massive fan, but I mean, at least it's original, sort of. It plays on classic horror tropes, but it's its own IP. Whereas, was there anybody asking for a prequel series on how Nurse Ratched became Nurse Ratched? No, there wasn't.
No.
If you want to tell a horror story, could you maybe come up with your own? As opposed to about you could have rebranded it as something fucking else. Because from what I can tell, it's been a long time since I've seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I remember Nurse Ratched being kind of sadistic.
Yeah,
not a freaking psychopath monster.
That's the big miss for me with this. Is I think if they had literally called it anything else, given her just any other name, it would be better than what it actually is. Because maybe it's because I love One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest so much, and the character of Nurse Ratched was so chilling in that movie, and it also has been parodied and made fun of in stuff like the bloody episode of Futurama where Bender goes to the mental asylum with Fry, and they've got a weird Nurse Ratched there. It's a kind of a joke. I feel like that's kind of detrimental to what they're trying to do with this, because it's an interesting character that they put forward, but it just, I cannot connect it to the character that I grew up with.
I'm being a bit out of line here by not having seen the TV show yet, but it kind of, I don't know how you take a psychological thriller, really, or drama that was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but quite a cerebral film, and go, now we're going to take one of the characters who was kind of a prick, a sadistic asshole, and now we're going to make her a feature of a horror story.
Yeah, it really, I've only 3 episodes in, but I don't know if I'm going to go back, because I just find it very disconnected and kind of sterile. It's sort of like, okay, it's Sarah Paulson in this interesting, creepy role, which I have seen 1,000 times, but this character seems a little bit empty and shallow compared to the work that she has done in so many other productions. It feels less than her, and I don't know if this is maybe because it was kind of rushed to market or something for Netflix because they just wanted to get it out, and it should have spent more time in development. But you know, it's the creative team essentially coming off of American Horror Story, which has got a consistent lineage of quality, and Sarah Paulson has won Golden Globes and things like that for her performance.
Here's the thing: is that I don't think American Horror Story is very good. I know people love it, and they enjoy it, but people enjoyed Mein Kampf. So, people enjoy Big Bang Theory. They enjoy Nickelback. I don't think it's particularly good horror. I think like I said earlier, look, I'll give it props. It is its own thing. It is original. They came out with their own original idea for a horror TV show, which is unusual and traditionally unsuccessful. So props to them for that. But the actual content is just playing up the same old horror tropes. It's creepy nurses inside a mental institute. Whoa! You know, like, I don't think it's particularly original or interesting television. I just think it's lazy television for people who don't actually genuinely like horror films. But so I think this is actually consistent with what they've made before. Except the difference is this time they've hitched their wagon to a beloved IP in One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest, and are basically basking in the reflected brilliance of Louise Fletcher's performance and the source material that made that film. They're basking in the reflection of greatness. They're standing on the shoulders of giants and not achieved anything in their own. If they'd come up with a Nurse Ratched character by themselves from scratch, and that would be something, but they haven't. So I know I'm harsh here, but I don't think American Horror Story is particularly amazing. I think it's derivative. And
were you accidentally or purposefully quoting Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park? Standing on the shoulders of genius.
No, that was an unintentional Goldblum. But they kind of are, right? We've had genius people like
you're absolutely right.
Milos Forman, Jack Nicholson, Louise Fletcher made this incredible thing 40 years ago. Let's just tack our wagon onto that. We'll buy the IP or we'll license the IP and tack our derivative TV show. I mean, it may not be. I haven't watched it yet, but to his greatness, and we'll get all these plaudits, and people will watch it just because the thing that somebody else did was so good.
See, I think that the character of Nurse Ratched and how she became this sadistic character in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, seeing that journey and that evolution would be quite interesting, or could be quite interesting. But they've gone, let's go this way, and given us something very shallow, very empty, with a lot of talented people involved that aren't firing on all cylinders. And it kind of feels like, all right, well, let's make it look amazing because the sets are beautiful. The production quality of this is fantastic. It's really, really wonderful. But in the first couple of episodes, there's nothing in it that's kind of grabbed me by the balls and said, you are going to watch this, you are going to suffer, but you're going to fucking like it. I mean, like, we've talked ad nauseum at this point about how Breaking Bad is phenomenal TV, but it's not one that you particularly enjoy watching. You experience it, and there's that kind of genre of TV where you appreciate it and you just go for the ride, even though you do kind of, on a certain level, feel violated in some way. Versus, you mentioned it before, Big Bang Theory and things like that, where it's soft puff. You go in, you know exactly what's going to happen. You're going to do this. It's very paint by numbers. And there's comfort and enjoyment in that as well. This, it's not sitting anywhere remotely close to any of those. It's not that familiarity of, okay, this is probably what's going to happen. They're dipping their toe into some unusual things. but at the same time, they're not going, yeah, we know exactly the tone we want to set. We are sticking to it, and you either come along with us or you bail. It's weird.
Well, I don't know. It was just the impression I got from looking at the trailer, watching the shorts on Netflix. It just kind of feels. I don't think it's for me. I don't. I said it looks a lot like American Horror Story, and you'd be shocked to hear this, considering my last statement, but I wasn't a huge fan of that. So I suspect this one's probably going to be the same. And like I said, I get a little annoyed, as we have done for some time on this show, but we live in, as I said, a post-creative era where original ideas seem anathema to everything's got to be linked to some other kind of property or brand.
Yeah. It was a great conversation between Joe Rogan and Guy Ritchie on the Joe Rogan podcast about that very state and issue. And he had an idea for a movie, and he had basically ended up slapping the King Arthur brand on it to get it made. It's okay. And I stand by that movie. I think it's actually a very interesting movie, and it was a disservice to put it in that franchise, because if they'd just gone, no, this is its original, unique fantasy movie. These are the rules that we have set up. This is the way we're telling the story. It would be appreciated much more than it is.
And that's Guy Ritchie. And that's Guy Ritchie coming off the Sherlock Holmes film, which were tremendously successful. Yeah. So if Guy Ritchie can't get something fucking made, with a major star attached, I mean, Charlie Hunnam, what chance does anybody have of getting an original idea over the line? The only people who can do it are Chris Nolan, Quentin Tarantino, Martin Scorsese kind of level. Yeah, people who've got the sweetest deals in Hollywood, right? I mean, if you're
pretty much. Guillermo del Toro he's kind of built his career on doing a passion project, then a mainstream movie, then a passion project, then a mainstream movie, and that is kind of working for him because his mainstream movies are at least entertaining, if not particularly good. Like Pacific Rim is not great at all. It's very boring, but it's not difficult to watch. It's not a painful movie to experience. But then you look at Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water, and it's like they're phenomenal. And then even his passion projects like Crimson Peaks, that's a tough movie to love, and I'm a big fan of Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, it's people. My boss at work told me how much he loved it, so other people are connecting with it. It could just be us being fusspots here.
Maybe. But there was another new show on Netflix that came out very recently that I have started watching, and I'm enjoying it far more. It is the anime Dragon's Dogma. This is based on a Capcom game that came out few years ago on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and fairly recently, a couple of years ago, got a remastering for Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch and all of that stuff. And so they've come up with this CGI animated anime series based in the world of that. And it's not bad, actually. The animation, it feels a little budget. It's certainly not going to win any awards, I don't think. It's not your traditional 2D cell shading, or when you think of anime, you might think of like Death Note or Naruto or any of the big franchises that have kind of broken through the zeitgeist of society. It's a weird combination of that 2D style with relatively cheap animation in this. When you were growing up, did you ever watch a terrible Disney show called Reboot?
No, I don't recall ever hearing of that one.
Yeah, it was set in a virtual reality world, and it had really bad animation, and it tried to actually tell some interesting stories, but it was very much designed for kids, and it wasn't very good. It's got its own fan base, and I probably pissed
off. It has a 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb.
For what? Reboot?
Reboot.
Whew, that's pretty high. I'd say it's a 6.5 maybe, but anyway, I digress. This show has got, I would imagine that it's probably the most convenient way of animating a show relatively cheap and relatively efficiently. particularly considering it seems like this has sort of come out of nowhere. So maybe it was something that they were able to put together and process and continue working on in the early stages of COVID lockdown. Apparently, Capcom have got quite a bit of involvement in it, and the animation that they use in the show does kind of feel like a Capcom game in some ways. That's kind of bizarre 3D but cel shaded animation style. But it's interesting. It's 100% for adults, because in the first episode, a child just gets mercifully picked up by a dragon and swallowed in a brutal way. In episode 2, there's just a woman who just completely is being attacked by these ghouls on the road, and her huge breasts are just flopping around all over the place. It's so over the top, it's stupid. But the story is evolving kind of nicely. And I don't want to give anything away because the episodes are nice and short, so it's worth just popping in and just having a sample of 2 episodes or 3 maybe. But more than anything, it did actually get me back into the game, and because the fight sequences are very much done in the same way that they were able to in the game. And one of the big selling points for Dragon's Dogma when it came out was the fact that you had these giant ogres and minotaurs and creatures that would come out, and you could literally climb up them, kind of Shadow of Colossus style, and just attack them. And you'd hold on, and they'd be thrashing around, and you'd be sort of attacking these bastards. It was really good fun, and they capture that quite well in the show. And going back to the game, even though it's old, and I think it came out as very close to when Skyrim came out.
Wow. Okay.
So obviously, Skyrim's one hell of a shadow, especially for open world RPGs. So it didn't get much of the credit that maybe it deserved.
What kind of game is it?
It's an open world RPG, fantasy.
So
Essentially,
like, something like shit, I can't remember the name of it. But sorry, continue.
No, think Skyrim.
Okay,
because there are dragons in it, and you do fight.
So it's sandboxing?
Those monsters. Yeah.
I was thinking more like Diablo.
No, it's definitely more sandboxy Skyrim style. You can freely wander around. It's a in-world third-person camera view overlooking everything, and you can go into these towns, and it's actually really well created and constructed. But it just feels, even I imagine that when you would have first played it, it probably felt a little dated, and even now it still feels dated, but it doesn't feel quite as dated as it should. It's aging relatively well, I think. But it's an interesting game. I do recommend people giving it a go if you're looking for something to get you through to the next big open world RPG, and obviously Cyberpunk coming November, but may possibly get delayed because they've recently been in the news about them game tech talk. Really unhealthy for the programmers. I would rather them just say, nope, we're going to delay it, but they want to get it out before Christmas, of course, and before the new console generations gets it too much of a foothold, I'm sure.
For sure, I'm excited to give. I was talking to someone the other day, and he's normally someone I would expect to be very excited about Cyberpunk, but he was like, I'd be able to, technically, I think it's November 22nd is the target date, which is ironically right about the target date when our stage 3 restrictions are supposed to go away. So that's right around when Melbourne should theoretically start getting back into COVID normal.
Yes, because we're supposed to have a COVID normal Christmas.
So he was like, I don't give a shit about Cyberpunk anymore. I can go outside.
That's fair.
All the people I expected to hear him say, but my friend Simon was not the guy.
That is an interesting thought, actually, about that is, we've got PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X coming out beginning of November, the first half of November, just before Christmas, and that's when, as you say, the end of quarantine dates are kind of tentatively put at this early stage. I wonder if people are going to buy these, and then the online vibrancy that we've had, like games like Among Us has been huge on Twitch and taking over, and all of these online games, and everyone sitting in front of screens. I wonder if it's going to really drop off because people just want to fucking go outside, or if they're going to go, no, this is kind of good.
Well, I think it will to a degree. I mean, just to use my friend Simon as an example, I'm sure he won't mind. He loves his hiking. And he's very much looking forward to getting back into it. And I think he's probably going to, I suggest, probably going to OD on it because he hasn't been able to really do it now for a couple of months, probably the better part of 2-3 months. So, but I mean, I think the good news story for the gaming industry is have a look at what's happening in Europe right now.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Spain had more cases and their highest number of new cases ever. Yes, the UK, shock horror, is not doing well. They're having massive new case numbers. France is having massive new case numbers. I think some places are doing better than others. But a lot of these countries are going back in for wave 2. We've had wave 2. Some have the rest of the country's got away with it to date, but I mean, who knows? It could happen to them. America never got out of wave 1. So
just got to ride that wave, man.
We never have a wave 2. It's just this fucking Patrick Swayze Bells Beach wave
you can't have a wave 2 if you haven't finished wave
the first
1.
I suggest yes. Surely eventually things will go back to normal to some degree. But you'd have to wonder. They would have logically, you think, picked up a lot of new customers, right? So there are probably people out there who've picked up games who maybe said they're not for me, or had not been a gamer for a very, very long time, who bought themselves a Switch, or bought their kids a Switch, and borrowed it occasionally for when the kids have gone to bed, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the great ironies of this situation is while there had been many, many losers out of the pandemic, there have been some huge winners. Netflix and streaming services would be some of them.
Yep.
The video games industry, I would imagine, would be another a huge winner out of this whole thing. And so you'd have to think they'll hang on to a degree of some of those customers. Some of them will go back to ridiculous pursuits like fitness and outdoors and friends and family and having a life.
Yeah, there'll be others who go, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I actually don't mind playing for an hour a week or something.
I love that Zelda game I played on the Switch while the kids were in bed. Oh, there's a new one coming out. I got to try that, right?
Yeah.
I'll get myself a Switch.
Absolutely.
When I start checking the train back to work so I can play on the train.
Well, we talked about it last week with Xbox buying Bethesda. You can comfortably argue a reason to have all 3 consoles because of the way that their industry is developing and how they're finally working out their own unique identity. And people themselves, the people that they are trying to sell those products to, have suddenly realized, oh, you know what? I need to find something to do that stops me from feeling depressed or anxious or bad or gets me out of this funk in my brain. Computer games. I can escape into a fantasy world and do this, that, or I can just play stupid games with my friends online, or I can drop into a massive narrative story of blockbuster proportions because there's no movies coming out, or I can't go to the cinema to watch Tenet. That sort of stuff. And people are going to say, you know what? That saved me for 6 months. That stopped me from being the worst version of myself. So I'm not going to let that go right now.
George did cut his hair, by the way.
I did.
He cut his hair. It's a shock. It's like when Samson cut his hair in the Bible. It's
I know you're saying that I've lost my powers.
You make of that what you want. And no, on point. I just so you're right though. Like people. I knew someone a few years ago who was married to a friend of mine who said video games are stupid. They're for children. And I'm like, you realize the average age of a gamer at that point was 32 or something, right? Like adults play games. There are games specifically designed for adults. I used to have an ongoing argument with her about that I feel like games are an art form. Some
Mm-hmm.
games are an art form, or an art form capable of being as profound as every bit as profound as film, for example. So I think I go back to a game like Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh yeah,
Go back years now, but like the moment when you spoilers, the moment when you find out that you're actually a Jedi was like one of the most profound moments in. Oh my god, I get to be a Jedi. I get to have a lightsaber. It was one of the great moments in gaming for me, and I know a lot of people like. I didn't like them, but like the Last of Us games, a lot of people find those games very emotionally profound. So done well, a game has the capability, from my point of view, to be every bit as moving. Its story can be incredibly moving. You know, Red Dead Redemption 2, amazing story.
You don't even have to go to those blockbuster games. Like I talked about it either on early versions of this podcast, but Valiant Hearts, a UbiArts game from a few years ago, phenomenal. It's about the First World War, and it's a side-scrolling 2D thing. It looks kind of cute, but by the end of it, I was crying like a baby. It was so moving. It was amazing.
Because you are part of that story, because you really were actually doing stuff. You're buying into that story. So if you've got a great story to tell, a game can be every bit as profound as a film can. But she just wouldn't buy it because she had this block in her head that it was Super Mario Brothers and Sonic Hedgehog, and that was the peak, the zenith of game design, right? Like, and she wouldn't. She wouldn't even entertain the concept. I'm like, well, how can you say that if you haven't played a video game for 20 years?
Yeah.
25 years, right? If you haven't picked up and had a go at one of these games that are Papers, Please, another game, but a really, really tiny story, but tiny little game, but
beautiful little game.
Wonderful story. Pick something up like that, play for a couple of hours, and tell me you're not sucked into the story.
Yeah.
She wouldn't do it. So I would, she was somebody who really loved live music. So there was a point where I'm going with this story. There is no live music anymore for this person. So I wonder if someone like that, right, with their main, no cinema, no live music, no theater, no festivals, no markets, like, and she lives in London now. So, again, they've had a rough time, and going back into a rough time of it. You're stuck in the house, there's nothing to do. I wonder if someone like that might pick up like I said, if their housemate or their son or their daughter or their brother or sister has a Switch. I'm using a Switch because I feel like it's the most accessible console. Then it's not Call of Duty that they're playing. And they pick up and they play a game like Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is very accessible, for somebody who doesn't like video games. And probably the Zelda name very familiar. Someone like that might actually pick up a console and go, oh, that's what Travis was talking about when he said games actually can be moving and profound.
Exactly. I absolutely agree. And hopefully it'll be the catalyst for that long hoped for dream of ours of video games being the next gold mine for movies to mine and actually give it appreciation.
We are getting there, though, right? We're getting there. Like some of these films, like Angry Birds, was very successful. Detective Pikachu was very successful. Sonic was very successful.
True.
First, you make the money, then comes the power. You got to make the money first. You gotta make the. Once they start making money, right? Then you got people who are maybe willing to take a little bit more of a chance on them. So it took Batman to make. I mean, Batman did both. It made money and took a chance, but. In this case, I'm happy with them making money. Then the next time someone comes along with a video game property and goes, no, I don't want to make a piece of shit fucking Assassin's Creed style thing. I want to make apparently maybe they're still doing the one of Tom Holland.
Uncharted.
Uncharted, maybe that's still happening. Who knows?
Yeah, apparently that's filming at the moment.
So apparently the stories are good in it. I mean, surely The Last of Us, incredible success of a game that apparently has an amazing story.
Yeah.
So, maybe someone will pick that up. BioShock is just sitting there waiting for this incredible story to go, hey, someone's already written a story. It's got an attached
we can put it to screen.
It's got an amazing brand already because millions of gamers around the world have already played it.
Yeah.
So I know I've been selling this line now for 6 or 7 years. I'll be right eventually.
Yeah. Hey, just like Trump says about coronavirus, one day it'll just disappear. One day it'll just happen.
You know, a stop clock is right twice a day.
It's true. It's true. I think that kind of brings us to the end of the show.
I think so. I apologize for everyone who tunes in just to hear me talk crap, but with 3 podcasts a week to record and a job, sometimes I just don't have time for new shows. But I did mention it a couple of weeks ago. Probably my main time sink of late has been 7 Days to Die.
Okay.
You can get it on Steam. It is, as George said, not very certainly a real left field choice for me because it is a zombie survival game, zombie survival crafting game.
Mm-hmm.
It's still in alpha. It's been out.
Okay.
It's been out for years, but it's still in alpha. So do you like Minecraft? Like, do you like Minecraft? But go, shit, I wish there was more to do. Then maybe 7 Days to Die is for you because it's a game where there are missions. Mm-hmm. Nothing particularly demanding. It's like go to this building, kill all the zombies, find the thing, bring it back to the guy. There are zombies wandering around the world who you have to kill, and they are a real threat. So we're not like it's not just at night like in Minecraft. The entire world can be destroyed. Not when I say you can. When I say I don't mean you can blow up the entire world. I mean every element in the game can be destroyed or broken down.
Wow. Okay.
So if you're in a building and you want to get to the other side of that wall, it's going to take you a while. But if you get a pickaxe, you can get through that wall. So
for Andy Dufresne.
Pretty much. So everything is. It's kind of what we kind of want from a game, right? Like if there's a wall, you can take it down if you have enough time and effort. So and you can build things, craft things, and I guess the main conceit of the game is every 7 days is Horde Night.
Okay.
Which basically means a giant horde of zombies will find you and attack you wherever you are.
Okay.
So, and they get increasingly more difficult and, larger in terms of numbers and strength of zombies as, you work through the game. So you do get very good at your 7 times table. And so,
Now that I don't like this game, I'm learning things.
Pretty much. So, you can probably fend off the first couple reasonably easily with some fairly light defenses, but now I'm up to level day 91 Horde. Okay. I have a reinforced concrete bunker, which you basically just stand and fight, and you can't run from them. They will find you wherever you are.
Okay.
So anyway, that's been my time sink. I'm probably 200 hours in over the last last month on this thing. It's really quite addictive. Like I really liked Minecraft in a way.
Yeah.
But I just found it a little bit empty because once you build a house, you're like, cool, I built a cool house. What next?
Build yourself in the game a living version of you.
Yeah, you can't. This 7 Days to Die kind of solves that for me. It kind of, I love zombies and I enjoy crafting and that kind of thing. It kind of puts them together nicely in a nice package. So if you're wondering why more recently I've had less TV to talk about than my co-host, is because that's been my time sink.
And that's perfectly good. I just yesterday I picked up a new game on Switch, Hades. And I will have more to talk about next week on that one. So that's a teaser for next week.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, next week we're going to talk about Child's Play. We'll be talking about Hades. We probably won't talk about 7 Days to Die because I just did. Anything else that sort of tickles our interest.
Yeah. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Please like, subscribe, share, all of that stuff over on Twitch, over on YouTube, Facebook. Follow us and grab our podcast, which last week's episode is now available on podcast services. The last thing that I would actually like to talk about is everyone out there. I am, as of tomorrow, for all of October, I have a goal of walking 150 kilometers for Australian mental health. And I am hoping that I'll be able to get that 150 kilometers done within 10 days. That is my own personal goal within a goal. So if you do want to show your support, please go. I will give you the link right now, ladies and gentlemen, because I am so badly organized. I haven't got it up. Where is it? Yes, it's onefootforward.org.au/George Terran. You can sponsor me there if you can. If you can't, then please just share it around and get as many eyeballs on it as possible, because supporting people who have mental health requirements is very, very important.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful cause, and I encourage all our Russian bots to contribute as many rubles as they can.
And Canadian bots, and anywhere else that has bots that would be interested in wasting their time.
Especially if they have money.
Yeah, absolutely. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we've been the Armchair Producers. Good night.
Good night.